Hi everyone. So we are going to dive into this topic about how do you prepare for a job interview. Now, this is a brief one. This is a short one. We have other videos that are a little bit longer, but I think this is important just to give you a quick overview. You have 2 days to prepare, and you can just go through this real quickly. So how do we go about that? So we understand interviews can be really stressful, but I'm almost certain I've done it before. Practice and preparation usually pays off. So, the way I think about it is begin with the story. You're in that interview, you're telling a story. And the best way to do this, in my opinion, is use the STAR method to concisely share your experience. So, what is the STAR method? So, we're looking at situations. So, you're setting the scene for what you're trying to explain in that interview. The task, to define the challenges. So, the task, the challenge, you are working on something. And obviously, you want to make sure that you detail that task to them. What are the actions? What are the steps you took? Like how did you get there? So you have the task. How do you solve this problem? What are the actions you took to get there? What were the results? Most people forget to mention the results. That is extremely important. Most corporation wants to know how do you solve this problem? What result you got to benefit the company. So that's a great way to use it, and a simple framework to use is just using the STAR method. Craft an elevator pitch. So think of this as you're crafting an elevator pitch. You typically what an elevator pitch is, you have usually they say 3 to 5 minutes to get from the bottom floor to the top floor, usually 12, 13, 14, 15, or 27th floor to get up there. The approximate measure time is 3 minutes. So just think of your timeline in that interview to answer a question, 3 to 5 minutes. How do you go through that? Talk about who you are, introduce yourself, who you are, your role. What are your strengths? Highlight your key skills. What are these skills that's related to the interview question? Your goals. What are your goals? State your career objectives, all right? What is it that you want to get done? How do you see your career path? And what are the next steps? How do you get there? What's the next step? So it's a great way to help frame, and keep you on track during the interview. So you have a particular question that's been asked. How do you keep there? So you have two process right now. You can use STAR method as a framework to elevate the pitch to keep you on track. Okay, I have 3 minutes to answer this question. So again, just think about it. Tell the story, craft the elevator pitch to help you as a guide. So most interview goes in different stages, basically. So usually there's a screening process, and it's typically telephone call, video calls, a screening process. You get through that phase and stage, and there's usually a first interview. Again, the first interview in today's world, as you can see, most things are moving back to in person, but it could also be a video call where you're doing a video call in the first interview. But again, be prepared for both, right? We have a video that we talk about doing online interviews. So be prepared for both. Be prepared for both of them. Basically, it's in-person discussion, qualification. Second interview, usually you're meeting the team, the tour, and I want to emphasize that, right? So basically, be prepared for both interviews because you could be doing online or you could be in person. So again, just be prepared. And the final interview, basically in this series, could be you're talking about certain details with the hiring manager in particular. So again, look at the stages. The first one, in depth, talk about your qualification, those skills that we mentioned that you have. How do you solve the problem? Second interview, you're meeting with a team and a touring officer. So, for example, you get past the first interview. Now you're talking to the team, you're meeting the team. This is a great way to understand the company culture, what you're thinking about, what the role that you're going to play. And then usually the final interview is you're talking directly with the hiring manager. So basically, again, this is a great opportunity to understand the team that you might be working on, what are some tasks that you might be doing, the company's culture. So it's pretty important that you're thinking through some of these things at each stage. So types of interviews. So again, when we think of different types, you have structured interviews, semi-structured interview, behavioral interview. So typical the structure of interviews and standard set of questions that you might have been asked a lot of times. These are the questions you're looking at. The semi, they're mixing up with standard and probably opening questions and follow-up questions. And then the behavior is usually a pathway into saying, okay, let's take a look at your past experience and the action. So usually behavior question is just looking at certain things and just say, okay, here you are. Walk me through a process that you experienced in the past. Could be a job, could be some situational that went on. And your role is to basically think about that. And again, a great way to answer this as a framework is just use the STAR method. That's basically my opinion. So when we think of these, basically, we might find ourselves in situations where we're thinking of handling difficult questions. So not the standard questions that you might see. These are difficult questions. And I would say again, always try to create some framework to help you get through these things. For me, start with just listening carefully. Like consider the questions. Again, the questions asked, pause for a minute. Don't just rush into the question. Listen. If you're not sure, ask, can you clarify these questions if needed, right? So always think about that. And then once you're comfortable, respond honestly and positively. So always think of that. So questions to ask. So you're in the interview, always make sure that you have some prepared questions that you're going to also ask. Usually stick with, in my opinion, stick with questions that are relevant to the company. For example, company culture, talk about the environment, the values, the role that you're going to be participating. So get some real good details of the role. What are the day-to-day tasks that you're working on? Think of the opportunities, right? What are some growth opportunities? So learn about the environment, learn about some advantages of what's happening in the organization, and basically be positive about some of these things, right? Consider the team dynamics and try to understand what's going on in terms of how do I work with these teams? How do we collaborate? How do we work on projects together? Making sure that you're showing enthusiasm that you want to be a part of this. Here's some sample questions. I'm a big believer in preparing, so just making sure that you practice some of these questions. Uh, they're there. I'm providing some for you, but you can just Google more on the internet. So you have a set of questions that you have practiced. You can walk into this exam and just ask. But again, remember what I said, right? Be flexible while you're preparing. Be flexible because you might walk into this interview, and there are some questions that they might ask you that is just you didn't find, you weren't prepared for. That's the moment when you stop and just start thinking about it and go back to that framework what I said in terms of handling difficult questions and just listen, clarify when needed, pause, no rush, and then respond positively and honestly. It's okay to make sure that you're doing that. Last but not least, I really emphasize for you to follow. There's so many people. I've done many, many interviews, and there's so many people who just either forgot for some reason or felt like they didn't do well in the interview, and therefore they're not going to follow up. It doesn't matter. Always follow up. Express gratitude. It's okay. You feel like I didn't do well in this one, but it's okay. Express gratitude. Thank the interviewer like for their time. They feel appreciated, right? They're doing these things. So allow them to feel appreciated. So thank them, express gratitude, thank them for their time, reiterate your interest. Doesn't matter how you feel the interview went, reiterate your interests, confirm that you are 100% in, very, very in positively. Highlight how you fit. Again, just reinforce, highlight how you fit into this organization and the role and the department. So again, look at all three. Then ask, what are the next steps? So you have a timeline for decision making. So I think this is a great way. Again, as I said earlier, this is a one of our shorter version of our interview practice, but I think it's a great fit for people who probably have a day or two to prepare for an interview. Wonderful opportunity for you to just use this, go through it. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Please help us by spreading the word. Don't be afraid to just email me if you have more questions, or DM me if you have more questions. Subscribe. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful time.